Gorilla trekking in Rwanda and Uganda is a powerful and breathtaking experience. Join Kelly as she shares her stories of Volcanoes National Park.
Hi, welcome to Paper Ink and Passports Travel. Today I am talking with my friend Kelly Berry. She is the Director of Sales for a collection of lodges in Rwanda and Uganda that focus on primate safaris. Kelly, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I know this is a new venture for you, so I'm so excited to hear more.
No, thanks for having me, Sarah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I know you are passionate about Africa. I know you have been there dozens of times. So that's what I'd love to start with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, my career in travel to Africa started in 2012, I believe. So now it's been about 8 years. I've worked for a couple of luxury tour operators. I've also worked on the sales side for hotels, and that's where I really fell in love with Uganda and Rwanda as destinations within Africa. I mean, the continent is huge, and there's so much to see and do in Africa, and so many of the countries are starkly different from one another. I mean, South Africa is different from Kenya, which is different from Mozambique, which is different from Uganda. So there's just so many things on offer to experience in Africa. But for me, for whatever reason, when I first went to Uganda and Rwanda in 2014, I really just kind of like fell in love with the destination, with the people, with the landscapes. Um, and yeah, just through the years, it's something I've always really, talking about Africa as a whole, I think I always got a little bit like the most excited to talk about the gorillas and gorilla trekking in the region. Not that I played favorites necessarily, but it definitely makes sense that I'm now officially a part of the team at Volcanoes Safaris as their director of sales and marketing, and get to talk about, the gorillas, but also just everything else, that very special corner of Africa has to offer international clients.
It sounds amazing. I can't wait to hear more. So I know this is a collection of, you said 4 lodges. Are they all within a national park? Would clients move from lodge to lodge? Would they stay at one lodge for the entire stay?
Yep, absolutely. So we have 4 lodges. We have one lodge, Virunga Lodge, which is kind of our flagship lodge. It's in Rwanda. It is located about 30 kilometers from the park head of Volcanoes National Park. Volcanoes National Park is the gorilla trekking park in Rwanda. So if you're trekking the gorillas in Rwanda, you're trekking in Volcanoes National Park. And clients would typically stay, I would say, ideally 3 nights there. They could do the gorilla trekking experience once or twice. They could do the gold monkey trekking. They could visit our various philanthropic initiatives and programs with the community, such as the Women's Cooperative for Basket Making. I think you can actually see some of my Rwandan baskets over there.
I love them.
But yeah, thank you. And my husband always says, I don't think we need to necessarily live in a safari lodge. And yet every time I come home from Africa, I bring more baskets and more decor items. But anywho, so I mean, Rwanda is easily combinable with Uganda. Definitely clients, if they have the time and the curiosity and the interest, they could easily combine the two. Our Virunga Lodge in particular pairs well with our Mount Gahinga Lodge, which is just across the Ugandan border. So it's about a 2-hour drive from our Virunga Lodge. You cross the border, Rwanda-Uganda border with your guide and in your vehicle. And then, within an hour, you're at the lodge. And this lodge is kind of just on the other side of the volcanoes. So you see kind of the same volcanoes you would see from the Virunga Lodge, but from the Ugandan side. And here you can also do gorilla trekking. There's the Nyakagezi family in Gahinga National Park. There's also golden monkeys. There's also a very, very interesting and inspiring Batwa community there, which you can visit and learn about. There's great hiking opportunities because of the region. It's just incredibly mountainous and volcanic, and you can hike a volcano, you can hike a caldera, and just really enjoy it. It's a very, very rural kind of picturesque landscape. And at one point, actually, from a particular hike you can do at Mount Gahinga Lodge, you can actually see into 3 different countries: Uganda, Rwanda, and the DRC. So it's very very scenic. And then we as well have 2 other lodges in Uganda that combine really well with one another. Windy Lodge, which is just on the outskirts of, or the edge rather, of Windy Impenetrable Forest in Uganda, which is kind of the most iconic or well-known place for gorilla trekking in Uganda. And Chambura Gorge Lodge, which is really in a very special location overlooking the Chambura Gorge on the edge of Queen Elizabeth National Park. And that's kind of, for someone who's been on a safari before, Queen Elizabeth National Park is a more traditional safari experience where you have the game drives or the boat ride down the Kazinga Channel. You'll see hippos and buffalo and elephants. So there is, as we were discussing a minute ago, there's a lot more to the region than just the gorillas. I think it's definitely probably most famous, especially to Americans, for the gorilla trekking experience. But the landscape is astonishing, the people and the history, the recent history, the culture, and then as well, other monkeys, other primates, other wildlife. There's just so much to see and do.
It sounds incredible. How long would someone stay with the lodges? Would this be a 10-day trip, 14 days? Would you want to stay longer? And could you combine it with, if you had the time, Kenya, Tanzania, or even South Africa? Or would you want to?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the traveler. I would say if you have the time, if you've been to other parts of Africa, let's say you've already done South Africa, you've already been to maybe Kenya, Tanzania, I would really encourage clients to consider Uganda, Rwanda as a standalone combined destination. You could easily do, like 8 to 12 days just between, our lodges in Uganda and Rwanda. If clients are looking for more of like a bucket list trip where they're trying to really accomplish, and see and do a lot in 1-2 week trip, they want to visit multiple countries and see multiple things, you could choose either Uganda or Rwanda to do the gorilla trekking. And I would say you need probably a minimum, ideally, of 3 nights at any of the lodges. So let's say you were combining Virunga Lodge in Rwanda with, a safari in the Serengeti. You could do that in 4 nights. You could tack those 4 nights on to either the front end of the trip before you're off to the Serengeti, or on the back end of the trip once you've wrapped up your Serengeti safari. And that's just one of the opportunities to combine. Uganda pairs nicely with Kenya. There are direct flights from, that get you from Nairobi to Entebbe in Uganda. From there, it's a quick flight over to Bwindi or Chambura. It really, there's so many ways it could look, but I would encourage clients to really at least consider dedicating, one trip to the region, because it's so different than the other parts of Africa.
Yeah. So for clients who, and for me as well, we've talked about this. I'm not overly familiar with Africa as a whole. I mean, I know where most countries are within the continent itself. I know you could probably go to Africa 12, 15 times in your lifetime and not see everything. Tell me a little bit about what's it like to go gorilla trekking? What does an average day look like? Are you up early? Are you doing, sunrise walks? Are you staying out late? What's it like?
A day gorilla trekking, it's pretty standard, at least at the beginning. You need to be at the park head, or at the meeting point in the park. I think it's probably around, let's say, between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. So you do need to wake up fairly early. So in that case, it's very similar to a normal day on the Savannah Safari. And you wake up, you enjoy a light breakfast, a hot cup of coffee or tea. You're then driven by your guide to the park headquarters. And then there you're actually assigned your gorilla family. So this is quite interesting. A lot of people ask, what is, how long is the trek? And, there's no way to know how long the trek is going to be. It could be 20 minutes, it could be 2.5 hours each way. So it really depends on a lot of variables, a lot of conditions. But what I think that those that manage the park and the permits and the trekking. So in Uganda, the Ugandan Wildlife Authority, in Rwanda, the Rwanda Development Board, what they do really, really well is that because they only assign your family, your habituated gorilla family, to the group, to you as a guest, that morning, they get a really good sense of who's trekking that day. How old are the travelers? What are their, physical fitness levels? And then, they would assign your group based on kind of a, a brief audit of
Okay.
what you're looking for as well. And they communicate with the guides. So for example, I went to the lodges in last year in May. I took my husband and I took two friends. We're in our early 30s, pretty physically fit. And on the way to the park head, we spoke to our guide and we said, we would love to get a family that was like really far away. We would love to really earn the gorilla sighting. We want to get, kind of work for it, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when the guides meet that morning, they offer this input to the park people, and then the park people, assign the families based on that. So we actually got a family that was it was an hour and a half trek deep into the forest to see the family that we got, because the guides do know generally where the gorillas will be. They've trekked them the day before, they've trekked them the day before that. They know kind of where their home territory is or their home base is. So they don't know exactly where they're going to be, but they have a great idea of where they're going to be. And while guests are actually waking up and having their coffee before they're even at the park headquarters, the trackers have gone out into the forest looking for the gorillas. So ideally, by the time you get to the park, by the time you're assigned your gorilla family, maybe you start trekking in the general direction of where the guides know the gorillas to be, or to be generally around. The trackers are coming upon the gorillas and radioing back to your guide where exactly they're located. So again, your trek could be 20 minutes in one direction, it could be two
Okay.
hours, it could have rained the day before, it could be muddy, slippery, you could be going uphill. There's just no way to predict
Mm-hmm.
exactly what kind of trekking experience one's going to have, and that's what makes it really exciting, and that's what makes every time different. So I've trekked, I
Mm-hmm.
think, 8 or 9 times, mostly different families. There's one family in particular I've trekked a couple of times, but generally, we recommend for clients to trek twice so that they can have a very different experience each time. You get a different family, you have a different guide. Let's say you trekked the first day and it took you 2 hours to find the gorillas. You could trek the next day, it could take you half an hour. And some families, much like meeting your family would be very different than meeting my family. All the gorilla families are different. Some have really young ones, some have newborns, some have toddlers, some have, 2 silverback males, others have 3 silverback males, or just 1 silverback male. So, the dynamics of the families are different. One day you might come across the gorillas and they're all they're resting and they're maybe not as active. The next day you might find that they're on the move. So it's really exciting to do. And, we would generally recommend that clients, if they can, do it twice, either in the same park or in different parks, maybe one trek in Volcanoes National Park on the Rwandan side, one trek in Bwindi and Penetrable Forest on the Ugandan side. But again, we're here to guide you and make recommendations based on, how much time you have and things like that.
Okay. How many gorillas are typically in a family? I know you say they're like humans. We all have different size families, but is
Mm.
there an average? Is it 2 parents and maybe an uncle and a couple kids, or are we talking 20 gorillas?
Yeah, they can definitely be up to 20 gorillas. I would say, I mean, like, gosh, I don't even know the answer to that question, but I would say generally the families I've seen, like a smaller family would be like 7 to 10 gorilla, and maybe a larger family would be like around 20
Okay.
gorillas or so. Um, yeah, somewhere I would say somewhere between like 5 and 15 members would be probably pretty much where the families fall. Some maybe
Okay.
smaller. I mean, all you need to start a gorilla family is a, a male gorilla and a female gorilla. But you know,
I was just curious, I mean, you think about,
no, the dynamics are very interesting. It's like I think in order to start a new family, a male, like let's say there's a male gorilla in the group that wants to start his own family, he can break away. Generally,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be the dominant silverback in the family. It would be one of the younger gorillas that is kind of, you know, seeking to start his own family. So he would break away. But in order for him to successfully start a family, he needs to kind of convince or coerce or seduce, one of the female gorillas from a family to also break away and to join him.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily get the impression that's very easy. I think it's very hard to do. So, but you learn all of this, from your guides. They're like walking encyclopedias. They're super, they trek these gorillas every single day. And they
Mhm.
know the ins and the outs of the families. They can, you could point at a gorilla and they would know exactly what that gorilla's name is, what, kind of the hierarchy of the group, you know, his or her personality. We share like I think over 98% of our DNA with gorillas. So it's, they each have their own individual personalities.
Mhm.
I think when you're when you come upon them in the forest and you get your 1 hour to spend with them, which is what you get. Once you found them,
Mhm.
you get 1 hour to enjoy observing them. You'll start to see that some gorillas are almost posing for the cameras, others are kind of shy and hiding away from the cameras. The young ones are generally like, you know, bopping around, being very energetic. The moms are kind of rolling their eyes, like, oh, let me nap, let me rest in peace. And it's really quite exciting to see, you know, the similarities between their lifestyle and ours, and
Mhm.
their reactions and personalities and ours. It's quite spooky sometimes.
Yeah. But sounds like gorilla trekking, I mean, it's more about the destination and the experience of being around the gorillas than it is. And I know the lodges are gorgeous, and you're not foregoing any creature comforts when you're going there.
Mhm.
But it is not about the lodge. It's almost like an expedition cruise in a way. It's not about the ship, even though the ships are great. It's about actually being in the destination and experiencing what that has to offer us.
Yeah, I think to some extent. I mean, the destination is just so beautiful. Rwanda, kind of the phrase or the name for Rwanda is the land of a thousand hills.
Mm.
The name or phrase for Uganda is the pearl of Africa. And like what I think struck me most about the destinations, from the very first time I went there to the most recent time I was there, last May, really was just how green and lush and alive it is. And it makes sense
Mhm.
because it's Uganda's an equatorial country. The equator crosses right through the middle of Uganda. So um, it's just, they have their short rain period and their kind of longer rain period. And it just really, it's so lush and it's
Mhm.
so green, and it's so beautiful and it's so mountainous, that you just get the most breathtaking views. One of our lodges, Virunga Lodge, on the Rwandan side, um, it has, I mean, from one side of the lodge, you see two twin lakes, with kind of tiers of mountains in the background. From the other side of the lodge, can see the chain of the Virunga volcano. So, I mean, it's just extraordinarily beautiful.
It sounds like
And I
it.
think our lodges do a great job of really highlighting the natural beauty of the destination with their views and their placement. I mean, for us, it's all about location. We're, by no means probably, in Rwanda, let's say the fanciest lodge. But again, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily about that, especially for us. It's about, it's about the view, it's about the service, it's about the warmth, the
Mm-hmm.
accessibility. It is about the luxury. I mean, we're definitely a luxury lodge, and the bulk of our clients are coming from the UK and the US, who obviously have very high standards when it comes to accommodation. But I think what people notice first about our lodge is the views and the location. I think what they go home talking about is the people and the service. And it's just kind of all of that wrapped together. On top of that,
Yeah.
the gorilla experience, the golden monkey experience, the community experiences. It's kind of the perfect storm of a really memorable trip.
It sounds like it. It sounds amazing. And I mean, adventure travel is close to my heart. I have not been to Africa yet. I have I think 6 places in Africa that I want to go. It's going to be 6 different trips. I'm sure I'll go back to them.
Yep.
You know,
Well, hopefully
often.
Uganda and Rwanda are on that list.
They are. I'd love to. One of my mentors, Michael King, you know him well. He has been to Africa dozens of times, and he's done gorilla trekking as well. And then I think a lot of people must have seen, I know that I saw it on Facebook a lot, the video of the man who was gorilla trekking, and the silverback comes over to like pick at him, like groom him.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, that was on the
So,
Ugandan side. That was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that just, I know it doesn't happen to everybody, but it looked amazing. So.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this has been great, Kelly.
It is. Oh, thanks. No, it's been wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I love talking with you. I'm so glad to catch up. I hope that you get a chance to get over to Africa, to the lodges soon.
I know. I was supposed to go in March was talked about. Then I was definitely supposed to go in May. Doesn't look like that's going to be happening. I think essentially as soon as I can, I will be there.
Yeah, I think that's true. And knowing how much you love Africa and the gorillas.
I know, I haven't been there since November. It's I'm feeling the itch, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. Thank you so much. Really appreciated. Friends, clients, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. We will answer these as best we can. So Kelly, thank you so much.